Everybody's leaving Austin, Texas. People are fed up. It has been ran into the ground. They're packing their bags and they're leaving. I'm kidding. Well, sort of for some people. So in the last few years, a lot of families have moved down to the area and they're not really happy with their experience so far. Also, a lot of locals are experiencing some frustration with the town. So in today's video, I'm gonna talk to you about some of those experiences and also some of the big changes that are happening in Austin, Texas that you should know if you're considering moving here. What's going on, everybody? My name is Julio Monagas here in Austin, Texas, beautiful Austin, Texas. If this is your first time to the channel, bienvenidos to the channel. Hablamos español, así que los podemos ayudar. But let's get right into it. In the last few years, Austin has experienced a ton of growth. And when it comes to growth, comes change. And when it comes to change, comes a lot of growing pains. And the number one thing that I've seen in the Austin area in the 22 years that I've been in this place, the traffic. The traffic has exploded, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. We have seen more and more traffic every single day. It doesn't matter what time of the day, whether it's a holiday or a weekend, I-35, it is always congested. Also, there's been a lot of new construction because we're seeing a lot of expansion in the city, and construction usually causes congestion. So traffic is definitely a downside to the area, and that's why a lot of people are moving out of here because they just can't stand the traffic. But to give you an example of how small Austin truly is, Patrick and I, we just came up from North Austin and it took us 15 minutes to come from Cedar Park area almost to downtown Austin. So when there's no traffic, Austin is super easy to get around. So yes, Austin is a pretty small size area compared to the cities like Houston and Dallas. So traffic feels a little bit worse than other cities. So a lot of locals complain about that. And it doesn't matter where you go. I just mentioned I-35, but if you go to Mopac, up north around Round Rock, 45, and some of the best ways to get around are actually the toll roads, but those come at a cost. So those are some of the complaints. That'd probably be the number one complaint that we get, but we'll have some more coming up. So Austin is changing, it's evolving, and with change comes a lot of good and also comes a lot of bad. But let's review why some of the people actually want to move out to this area is that they come here for the weather. A lot of people say, hey, I'm tired of the gray, rainy winters. It rains all the time, it snows all the time. I'm tired of being in the snow. But one word of advice, because it's happened to a lot of people that have moved here and they're excited about this warm weather. They're excited about the sun that I'm experiencing right now. They don't realize the sweat that you're gonna experience when you get to Austin. It is humid. It is a lot more humid than people expect. So what I would suggest is spend a couple of summers in the Austin area or in the Central Texas area before you decide to make the move or before you decide to leave, because the first summer is gonna be a shock. Until you experience 98 degrees with 45%, 50% humidity, you don't know what heat is, and that's what we have right now. So what I would say, if this is gonna be your first summer, just wait another summer and see if you can actually stand it, because our falls and our winters are actually pretty mild. The temperatures anywhere, from low 70s all the way up to the mid to high 80s, and it's actually pretty comfortable. However, some of the changes that like I mentioned at the beginning of the video that have been happening in the area that some of the locals, including myself, are kind of fed up with it is the winters. And for some reason, we don't know what's happening, call it global warming, whatever it is, but the winters for 1 week out of the month, usually out of the year, usually in February, we get these freezes. And either a lot of snow comes down or ice comes down, and it shuts down the entire city. And because we don't have the infrastructure in the city, we just can't handle it. And so we either lose power, we lose water, or we lose both. So that is something definitely that you have to be prepared for, and what a lot of people coming from out of town don't expect, even us locals don't expect, especially in the last 3 years. Another thing to mention, I've mentioned before, you can get pretty extreme weather such as tornadoes out here. We just had one about 2 years ago in Round Rock that was pretty severe, so that is also something that you keep in mind. But overall, make sure that you spend some time in these summers because it's really the most extreme weather before you decide to make the move. All right, guys, so some of the things with the growth, right, comes a lot of building and construction. As you can see behind me, if you could go back, I've been here in Austin since about 2000, 2002, and none of this behind me was here. The biggest tower, I believe at that time, around the 2000, 2002, was the Frost Tower, which you can barely see it behind me. But with a lot of the growth comes a lot of density, right, in the city. And that, for some people that have moved out here, they didn't realize, especially when they wanted to be close to the city and to the action, they didn't realize how tight they were gonna be. They were also looking for space, but being close to the city, and you can't necessarily have both. So that is something to keep in mind for people that moved out here that were like, man, I just feel very tight. It has become a big city, not like some other people say that it is still a small city. It is not. Now, when it comes to surface area, right, square mileage, yes, Austin is still very, very small compared to Dallas, compared to Houston. And honestly, like, it doesn't take you that long when there's no traffic. It doesn't take you that long to get around town. It really doesn't, because it's so small. But now that's not the case anymore because of the traffic. But what I'm trying to make a point here is that you'll be surprised if you want to be close to the city, how tight you're going to be, how much traffic you're going to encounter, and how car dependent you're going to be, which we're about to talk about next. So one of the big facts about living in the Austin area that a lot of people moving here and they have moved here didn't realize is how car dependent you're going to become. Anywhere that you go around the area, you are going to have a car. It doesn't matter where you go. Typically, if you're near the downtown area, you can get away with, you know, taking an Uber or walking. But if you want to walk in this heat, hey, I'll leave that up to you. But that is a reality of living in Texas, living in Austin, is that you're going to be car dependent, especially if you live outside of the city. So definitely I've had some clients that didn't realize that, and before they moved down here, they were not happy about that fact. All right, guys, so we have brought you here to South Congress Avenue, one of the most famous attractions here in the Austin area, and something that has seen a lot of change. And me as a local, sometimes I don't even recognize it. And one of my biggest pet peeves about this street is that you can never find parking. We have been driving around now for about 15 minutes or so, and it is really hard to find parking on the street nowadays. So we'll continue to find some parking, and we'll share some of the other changes that are happening here. So as we know, Austin has become a top destination for a lot of people. A lot of people use their vacation time to come here. So we're standing on South Congress Avenue, one of the most famous streets here in the area. Man, I've been here for about 22, 23 years in the Austin area, and sometimes I don't even recognize the street. It has changed so much. And you didn't used to see Lululemon or Ray-Ban or these big top brands in this area. Now you're seeing that. And so that is attracting a lot of tourism, is attracting a lot of people to spend either their bachelor or bachelorette parties here. You see them all around the area. So with that comes a lot of complaints from the locals because it gets overcrowded. It took us a little bit of time to find parking, as you'll see it in some of the B-roll, because it does take a long time to find parking nowadays. It used to be where some of these buildings were not even here, especially on the other side of South Congress. So thank you for that, man. So a lot of the overcrowdedness and coming from the tourism, because Austin has become a top destination. So that is some of the changes that we have experienced. And that is probably one of the biggest complaints that locals have when it comes to Austin in the last few years. But up next, we're gonna talk about probably one of the biggest complaints from the locals and people that have purchased homes here in the last 3 years. Stay tuned. Okay, so one of the things that comes as a shock when you're moving from out of town are the property taxes. Especially in the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen a crazy increase in property taxes. Obviously, there has been an effect of the fact that prices have gone up considerably during the pandemic, but for some reason, the appraisal district decided to also take advantage of that, and they have jacked up our property taxes. I'll give you an example. I had a couple from Seattle that they didn't realize how much more property taxes are here in Texas. So that is definitely something that comes to a shock. and actually why some people are moving out of Austin to either San Antonio or even out of state because they cannot afford the property taxes anymore. So yeah, the appraisal district decided, and that's the reason why I have the Capitol behind me, the appraisal district decided to take advantage of this, and it seems like they're coming up with more and more projects to fund, and guess where the funds come from? Via property taxes. So definitely something to keep in mind. It has definitely have run some people out of town. If you're an investor, this is definitely something to keep in mind. If you're an investor, it has probably cut your cash flow in half, if not have taken it all away. If you're a homeowner, make sure that you have your homestead exemption in place, because that'll help cap your property taxes at a certain percentage, no more than 10%. But if you're moving from out of town, this is something that you definitely have to keep in mind when it comes to affordability in Austin. Okay, so speaking of changes in Austin, especially when you talk to a local like myself or people that have been here even longer, like I mentioned before, we're standing on South Congress, and I'll say it again, sometimes when I come out here, I don't even recognize it. It did not look like this before. But the point that I'm trying to make here, especially when it comes to local, I remember that the saying back in the early 2000s used to be Don Dallas, my Austin. And now that has completely changed, especially in the last, I would say last 2 to 3 years, it has changed to Don California, my Austin. So it goes to show you how much change we have gone through in the last 20 to 25 years. And I remember this used to be a sleepy college town, you know, a lot kind of that hippie vibe, because this is the blue dot in a red sea that it is Texas. If you're moving from out of town, this is definitely more of a democratic city compared to the rest of the country that is more conservative and more Republican. So definitely a lot of changes. You know, like I said, I was here in the early 2000s, and you still had that vibe. There was a lot of music going around, a lot of free music everywhere that you had to go. And now, this may not be a popular opinion, but I don't know if you consider Austin being the music capital city of the world anymore. It just doesn't get that vibe anymore. And I know I'm probably gonna hear it for some people, but that's just my opinion. And I think it has changed a lot. And you see it here on this street being South Congress, how much it has changed. So for some of the locals, I would say that some of the changes that we have seen, but up next, I'll share some more about the changes locally. So one of the biggest changes, if not the biggest change that has some people leaving Austin, is the affordability issue that we have. Due to the immense growth that we've had in the last 2 to 3 years, prices have skyrocketed. There's no secret about that. You know, Austin was one of the hottest cities during the pandemic and during the boom that we had in 2021. As you guys know it, Elon Musk decided to come to this area for good reason. One of the biggest things is that we don't have a state income tax, and obviously he loves that. He also loves the legislature here in town that favors him a little bit more. So with that came increase in prices. With that comes an affordability issue, especially when it comes to first-time home buyers. They are being pushed out of the market, and that is just that reality of living in Austin. Now, we have definitely seen the prices stabilize, right? From the peak of 2022 to now, we have come down approximately about 15%. But now, in the last 2 to 3 months, we have actually seen an increase in prices month over month. And we're also seeing buyer confidence going up because they're getting used to these higher rates. So we don't expect prices to come down anymore. Actually, we're expecting prices to go up slightly. And one of the things that the experts are predicting is that if for some reason the rates come down below a 6%, we're definitely going to have a wave of buyers coming back onto the market. But yes, affordability is definitely one of the issues that you have seen in the area that has forced some people move out of town. They either go down to San Antonio or they go out of state because they just can't afford the prices anymore. Guys, so I hope you really enjoyed that video that we just put together about the reasons why people are leaving Austin, Texas. I still think this is one of the top cities in the country, and whether you love it or you hate it, I would let you make that determination, because don't let somebody else's opinion steer you away from probably living in the best city in the country. This is my home, and I still love living here, no matter how much it has changed. That is part of progress. That is part of change. It'll come with some growing pains. Guys, we worked really hard to put these together, so much so that I had to change shirts because I sweat through my other one. But that is some of the reality checks of living in Austin, Texas. I hope you really enjoy that. If you're considering moving to the Austin, Texas area, make sure to shoot us a text or an email to the information below. Don't be shy. We can answer any time of the day, every single day of the week, and we'd be more than happy to help you through the process. Until next time, adios.